Welcome to the Gift of Life with Gregg. I'm your host, Gregg Francis, and I'm joined today by my co-hosts, Barry Kaplan and Leora Lieberman. We save lives, plain and simple. Have you known someone stricken with leukemia? Has a family member of yours suffered from lymphoma? Then turn up your dial. This show is for you. We are the gift providing a second life. We are the Gift of Life. Since 1999, we've saved over 2,700 lives. For many patients with blood cancer, bone marrow donation is often their last hope, and that's where we come in. We try hard at what we do, but we will never be satisfied until we can say, one day, we found a match anytime, anywhere, for anyone. That's the Gift of Life way. So now we have the scissors, we've opened the box, and now it's time to unwrap the Gift of Life.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to our show. Last week's show discussed bullying and hazing, as October is National Bully Prevention Month. We heard many candid stories at the university level, and subsequent to our last show, I read a book, it's a New York Times bestseller, by Charles M. Blow called Fire, Shut Up My Bones. And funny enough, or in some cases it was melancholy, it addresses some of the very same topics we've discussed, and I certainly recommend it. It's a very, very good, passionate read. Also, we had many subsequent tweets and emails after last week's show, most again which cater to a common theme. Bullies in grade school do not sign up to be bullied. Again, for those of you who tuned in last week, you know that the month of September is Blood Cancer Awareness Month. However, only creating awareness for 1 month will not solve the blood cancer epidemic. So we will and we have to continue to spread the word, and we ask our listeners to do the same. Pacific Islanders are having a really tough time. Hispanic people are grossly underrepresented. Our Asian friends are underrepresented. Our African American friends are significantly underrepresented. I hope our society and our friends continue to be proactive and join the worldwide registry. If you want to get involved, please call Bridget. She's waiting for your call at 1-800-9-MARROW. Again, that's 1-800-9-MARROW. Now, I'm going to keep my jet staple very, very quick, because they don't deserve a lot more time than that. The Jets lost a game on Sunday, and we're off to a 1-7 start.
Oh, geez.
Yeah. I always say it cannot get worse, but Barry, I won't say that anymore.
I think it can get worse, Greg.
I cannot dignify giving the Jets any more airtime. Done. My co-host Barry Kaplan is back and better than ever, so it's good to see you, BK.
Great to see you, Greg.
And for those who have been our supporters this season, welcome back. And sincerely, we want to thank you for all that you've done to spread awareness and transpire action for our show and for our cause. Because of you, we are ranked the #1 radio show on 1470 WWNN, our flagship station, as well as, believe it or not, being the #1 bone marrow radio show worldwide. And people have joked about it. Is there more than one bone marrow radio show? There's actually quite a few, and I'm proud to say that we're the #1. And that's because of you, our supporters. As previously mentioned, our show is going to be syndicated in 6 major cities, so we're just finalizing the agreements. Once we have those cities, we'll certainly let you know. So it's more awareness, more people swabbing, more contributions, and the culmination of your help will equal more lives being saved. And that's why we do what we do every day at Gift of Life, and that's what we do every Tuesday on Gift of Life with Gregg. That's the reason why we do it. For those of you who are tuning in for the first time, hop on board. We're so glad that you could join us for Gift of Life with Gregg. I'm Gregg Francis, and welcome to our show. We encourage our listeners to call in at any time at 1-888 1-888-565-1470. Again, BK, that's
1-888-565-1470. And Greg, before we get to today's topic, because I got a great show for our listeners today, I'm really excited about today's show. I want to introduce everyone to our special guest today. He's sitting right next to me. His name is Big Nate. And I want to remind our listeners that we went out and asked our listening audience the first inaugural show that we had. We said, listening audience, we want to seize the day every day, carpe diem, live your life like it's a gift of life. And lo and behold, we got someone who said, hey, I have something that I've been wanting to do for a while, and I haven't been able to do it yet, but, look what happened, Greg.
I'm real happy that you mentioned that. And we put that challenge out on our inaugural show, as you said, Barry. We had a lot of emails and a lot of really valid responses because we said that no feed is too small. But this one certainly piqued our interest. So without further ado, let's welcome Big Nate.
Big Nate, welcome to Gift of Life with Greg.
Hey guys, thanks for having me.
So Nate, why don't you, because Greg and I, we sat down after, I don't know, so many emails. We were reading through them and we're like, listen, we can't choose, we can have them all on at the same time. We got to choose one. Nate, why don't you tell us the story that you told us in that email that just blew us away?
Yeah.
Well, I'm not really sure how I found the station. I was driving in the car with a friend of mine, and I came across your show. And one thing that you were talking about that really grabbed my attention was the young girl by the name of Sammy, who was in need of a bone marrow transplant. Now, this hits very close to home for me because, like most people, I'm sure, everyone knows someone who has, been affected by a disease, blood cancer or anything else.
Sure.
Absolutely.
So it grabbed my attention, and, I'm sitting with a friend of mine in the car, and at the end of the show, I decided that I'm going to do something so outrageous, something that I never in a million years would even contemplate. The next thing I knew, I was jumping out of an airplane.
Oh my God. And so it's incredible.
And for those who know me, I don't even like to fly. I prefer to drive across the country than to jump on an airplane. So to find myself, I don't even remember, it could have been maybe 8,000 feet in the air. I couldn't even believe that I was about to jump out of an airplane.
I'm probably getting a panic attack listening to you because I'm in your club. I really don't enjoy flying.
Well, I want to talk more about this because that's a remarkable, jumping out of an airplane. We got our first caller, though, so let's take our first call real quick. We have Jeremy on the line. Jeremy, can you hear me? Jeremy, you're there? All right, we got some technical difficulties in the back. We'll hold that call off for later. So why don't you tell us a little more, Nate, about because I've never went skydiving. I'm not like you guys. I kind of enjoy flying, especially the turbulence, it's weird. But skydiving, you're in like a tiny plane, like you're with like four other people. What was it like?
It was truly unbelievable. It's very, very loud. The hatch is open. It's just an unbelievable feeling. It was probably the longest 15, 20 seconds of my life. I don't remember much. All I remember is that once I jumped out of the plane, the parachute was deployed, and the next thing I knew, I was on the ground. I wish it was a little longer so I would have been able to appreciate the experience, but it just happened so fast, and I was so relieved to touch ground that it was just unbelievable.
Well, let's take that first call real quick. Jeremy, you're on the air. Hello, Jeremy. Can you hear me?
Hey.
Hi, Jeremy. Welcome to the Gift of Life with Greg. How are you?
Hey, I'm great. How are you guys?
We're good. Jeremy, may I ask where you're calling from?
I'm actually calling from San Luis Obispo, California.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
I haven't heard of a call from that yet. Let me ask you, how'd you hear about us?
I just went online, and I have friends that have heard you guys before, and I want to check you guys out. So
well, thanks for calling, Jeremy. I was wondering, what are you calling about today?
Yeah, what's on your mind?
Well, okay, so last time you guys were on air, you guys talked about, hazing and bullying.
Correct.
And I'm a student at California Polytechnic State University,
Cal
so,
Poly.
You know, Cal Poly. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And I've seen, there are at least a couple instances in the last year or so that, hit home with what you guys were talking about. And I wanted to just thank you guys for bringing awareness to it. It needs to be publicly, broadcasted. It seems like it's not really talked about enough. So to be talking about it, on air that's great.
Jeremy, if I could advise you, I was out a little bit under the weather last week, but I read a book by Charles M. Blow, a New York Times bestseller, as I mentioned before. It's called Fire, Shut Up My Bones. And it spoke about the gentleman right now is 44 years old. And Jeremy, he spoke about during his days at Grambling when he saw his peers really getting hazed beyond any type of reasonable limits. It still haunts him to this day that he didn't intercede. I mean, there wasn't really any long-term repercussions, but during those episodes, his friends and his pledge brothers almost were at the side of being perished.
It's bad, I mean, I know people in frats, and you hear stories like that, and it just, it's, you want to say that you would, stop it yourself when you're in that situation. But it's a lot, it's a lot of peer pressure, and it's in the first, just having it in the first place, hazing is just horrible,
Hey, Jeremy, I wanted to thank you so much for your call and your contribution today. We really appreciate your listenership. And thanks for calling, and hope to hear from you soon.
Yep, thank you.
This topic has sparked so much controversy over the past 3 weeks that Barry and I have been getting tweets and emails nonstop. But I want to bridge something before we get into Nate, getting back with Nate with his
amazing experience.
Amazing. It has me a little bit in terror, but it was an amazing story. We're going to stay at the university level today, but in a different realm. And we're going to talk about, in light of recent news at the university levels, to what degrees are coaches accountable for ensuring that their players actually receive an education? These are, again, are institutions of higher learning. In certain instances, we found out, and Barry's going to go into this in a little bit, not only are coaches not showing accountability, but they're complicit in directing their athletes to take phony classes that don't exist.
Phony classes that are deemed easier. For example, instead of taking chemistry, they would take ceramics. I mean, I'm in a ceramics major, so I know it's not that easy. But there's, on an institutional level, there's something going on. Call it grade inflation. Call it, a disingenuous academic career. I don't know what you want to call it, but that's what we're talking about on today's show.
It's almost like the rampant need to win. But we have some statistics that may knock your socks off. I know that Barry's done a tremendous amount of research. It's been brought to the surface in a few real renowned academic institutions.
That's
so
correct,
that's something that we want to bite into a little bit later on. But again, we want to thank Jeremy for the call. But let's go back to what we call affectionately Big Nate. And Big Nate, what I didn't ask you is, or I do know this, but for our listening audience, where are you from?
I am from West Palm Beach.
Okay, so
Local boy.
a local man that we're really happy to have on board with us today at the station. And you jumped out of an airplane. Somebody that doesn't like to fly commercially jumps out of an airplane.
Correct.
And what incentivized you in your right mind to do that?
Of all the things, you hear on the radio, go and seize the day. And like the first thing that you woke up and was like, yeah, I'm going to jump out of an airplane. How did you get there?
Ever since that show, I've implemented the YOLO philosophy into my daily life.
And for those that are not familiar with that acronym,
What's the YOLO acronym?
You only live once. And I'm a firm believer in a non-productive minute is a wasted minute. And I think that you should capitalize on every single day that you're You wake up in the morning, you're breathing. I think every day should be a day that you should seize, no matter what it is that you're doing.
And Nate, I'm going to steal your thunder. The three of us right now are lucky to be in this room talking about the experience that you had. We're very lucky every week to be able to speak to our listening audience.
Yes.
We know that there's a girl out there named Sammy, 6 years old, that's fighting for her life. We found out another baby, 1.5 years, fighting for his life. Gift of Life this year had about 110 life-saving transplants. We're going on about 3,000 lives saved. Until something happens to you, then that's the time where you recalibrate your life. What we're asking our audience to do, and we thank Nate for really being our inaugural guest in this response, you took it where you still had your physical and mental faculties to do so. Although mental, I'm going to question jumping out of a plane.
It's safe to say it was a pretty unstable choice that I made.
But you know what? You did something. There are no regrets. Would you do it again?
Absolutely not.
Okay, but you did it once. My theory is you only live once, YOLO, but make it last 1.5 times. But with that, what we're trying to inspire to our audience, if you had the capacity to do so, do something that you never thought that you could do. You are the only one that's holding yourself back.
100%. And as a matter of fact, being on this show is another bucket list item crossed off because I've never been on the radio before. And if it's okay with you, I'd like to say hello to my wife of almost 20 years.
Oh, of course.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. And I'm pretty excited because she always said that I had a face for radio. So I'm glad that I'm excited to be here today.
I'm excited to have, and you want to know something? You have a great voice for radio. It's coming straight out of the box. It's quite impressive, but you exemplify what we were trying to get across for these last 4 months. Do something that you never thought that you would do while you have the opportunity to do it. As many lives as we've saved, unfortunately, Barry, we see the other side of the spectrum where people don't get the opportunity to do what they wanted to do.
All too often, Greg, it's just one of those realities that's the elephant in the room.
And someone like Nate certainly exemplifies, if you have a chance to do something, as foreign as it may be to them,
it's as simple as making a decision to commit to something, larger than yourself.
And you're the one that did it.
Now we got a call coming in. I want to reiterate though. I want to reiterate real quick. It doesn't end with Nate here. It doesn't end with Nate. Send us your emails. Tell us your carpe diem, how you seized the day, how you made your gift of life. You unwrap the gift of life, as we like to say.
Yeah.
Email us at giftoflifewithgreg@giftoflife.org. And who knows, you might be on live radio.
And again, the Gift of Life with Gregg. My parents had an adversity to name me Gregory, so it's Gift of Life with GREGG at giftoflife.org. I believe that we have a caller on the line, and Big Al, step up to the plate.
Hi.
Al, you there, man?
Hi, is this a radio show, Daniel?
Hey, Al, Gift of Life with Gregg.
Cool. So I heard you guys talk about athletic scholarships and issues with students being given false classes. Is that right?
Yeah, we actually started talking about this whole scandal that's going on at Chapel Hill, UNC Chapel Hill. You actually beat us to it, actually, Al. But it sounds like you already kind of know the deal. What are your thoughts on grade inflation in college for athletics?
I have a modest proposal on that.
Share with us,
Hear me
please.
out a second? You heard of GMOs? They're called genetically modified organisms.
Yes.
Well, I think we should have AMOs. We should have academically modified organism labels. No, seriously. So if a team is playing and it's known that they modify the academic performance of grades, I think that should be on the right there on the playwright when you look at the actual game being played. It should have a big AMO and big green letters on it.
That's pretty much every team in college football. I mean, I'm sure it goes.
At least that way that look, if these colleges allow students to cheat on tests, then we should know that this particular school is allowing their students to cheat on tests. So at least it's not. They're not going to. They'll be honest about it. I'd rather them, be honest about it. We're allowing our students to cheat,
I don't think it's cheating.
and
I
that
think
way
that
kids will know, whether or not they're going to a school that allows that, or they're not going to school that allows that. Or, watch a game, you'll know whether or not it's because there are lots of athletes out there who are really good students, who are honest students, and they're being cheated out of that opportunity because the teams that have students that are not real students, it's not fair to the real students that are playing, football and achieving success in college.
That's too
honest
true.
Career in college.
Well, you know what? I agree with your sentiments. Big Nate might not agree so much, but Al, thanks so much for your call, and really appreciate your listenership.
Okay, thanks.
Have a great day, Al.
Bye.
All right, with that, we're going to take our first commercial break. Hope you guys join us when we get back. We're going to dive into this topic, really controversial topic. But until then, stay tuned.
ThrowItBetter.com. Do you need help with your bowling game? Are you taking the right 5-step approach? If you want to become a competitive bowler, even a recreational bowler that's considering joining a league, or a league bowler that is considering joining a tournament, you need to see Vince. He's going to show you how to throw it better. He'll get you the right equipment. He'll show you the right approach. And as a certified coach, he'll put you in the best position to succeed. If you're interested, please contact Vince at throwitbetter@gmail.com and tell him that Gregg sent you. Again, that's throwitbetter@gmail.com, or call Vince at 954-541-5414.
If you own a business and have the need for commercial insurance, I suggest you call Chris Moore of Brown & Brown Insurance in Fort Lauderdale. Chris has been in the commercial insurance business for over 30 years and can handle any company's need for property, general liability, workers' compensation, and automobile, just to name a few. Brown & Brown, being countrywide and the 5th largest agency in the country, gives Chris the tools he needs to meet all your insurance needs. So call Chris at 954-331-1420. Again, that's 954-331-1420. We want to extend a special thanks to our friends at the Boca West Foundation for all the wonderful work they do for Gift of Life and for all the meaningful service they give to the Boca Raton community. For over 3 years, the Boca West Foundation has generously supported local charities in the Boca Raton area. The Boca West Foundation. It's all about the kids. Are you in the market for a health plan? If so, please visit my good friend Gary at Health Plans Unlimited. No plan is too big or too small. Gary will customize a plan that's affordable and comprehensive, just for you. If you're interested, please visit Gary Goldman, the best in the biz, at www.healthplansunlimited.com. Again, that's www.healthplansunlimited.com. Or you can call Gary Goldman directly on his personal line at 954-303-6676. Again, that's 954-303-6676. And tell him that Gregg sent you directly from the Gift of Life. Health Plans Unlimited. We have the health plan for you. Welcome back to the Gift of Life with Gregg, the show that talks about giving and receiving. I'm your co-host, Leora Lieberman, and I'm here with my host, Gregg Francis, and co-host, Barry Kaplan. If you'd like to call into our show, we'd love to hear from you. Please call 888-565-1470. Again, that's 888-565-1470. And now, back to our show.
And welcome back to the Gift of Life with Gregg. Thanks for joining me. Angry Barry Kaplan here. I'm a little angry today. We'll tell you why in a little bit, right, Gregg?
Hey, you got it. You're living up to your moniker.
Yeah. We also got a special guest today, Big Nate over here. Big Nate, welcome to the show, Gift of Life with Gregg. Want to remind our listening audience, our friend Big Nate here went out and seized the day, took us up on our challenge on that first day, that first show that we had, and unwrapped his Gift of Life, and you ended up going skydiving there, didn't you?
Yeah, it was Pretty unbelievable experience, like I said.
Well, we got the phones going off the hook right now, so we're going to get to some calls first. Before that, though, we're going to jump into some of these cases about what we're talking today, Greg. What are we talking about, just to remind our listeners?
We're talking about, are coaches at the university level responsible to make sure that their team, the university athletes, are actually getting educated? Or, and in certain cases, what's surfaced right now is that the administration and the athletes were complicit in putting athletes into phony classes to ensure their eligibility.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly, there's a lot of stories in the news. I was doing some research, Greg. I'm just going to start firing these off.
Please.
And here we go. University of Minnesota in the year 2000. We had a basketball coach who was writing essays for his students. Ended up that 18 students over 5 years ended up getting credit for work that they didn't do. University of Miami, 2011. There was a big Ponzi scheme going on, and this guy, Mr. Shapiro, I believe his last name was, he was doling out money to people, coaches, admin, high school football players, saying, come to University of Miami. You'll get all these handouts, all these, compensations, under the table compensations. We're not going to hear anything about it. Well, 2011 comes around. There's a whistleblower, and all of a sudden, there's this huge scandal on their hands. $2 million doled out to all these kids. $2 million. And of course, the one that probably is catching most limelight nowadays, the UNC Chapel Hill scandal, which in 2012 kind of came to light, and then I guess must have been a couple days ago that there was a report released, and now proverbial it hit the fan. A lot of different things. Let me spell this Chapel Hill circumstance out to our listeners. This is what happened, ladies and gentlemen. Supposedly, an administrative assistant in the African American Studies Department worked with the department chair, the coaches, the academic support teams, and the students by setting up bogus classes they're called interdisciplinary classes. It wasn't like a lecture class. It wasn't a bunch of people going in and sitting and listening.
Correct.
It was a one-on-one type of class where there's a professor and a student, and they're very independent work being done. I've taken a class where it's like that. The problem that happened, though, was all they had to do for the class was write one essay. The administrative assistant read the first paragraph of the essay. If it made any sense at all, she checked it off, gave it an A and a B, A or a B, forged a professor's signature on it, and these kids were getting straight A's.
Yeah, or at least getting A's in those courses.
Yeah. Now, the problem, Greg, is that this happened since 1993. This was a long-running scandal. And I want to refresh the memory of our listeners. The University of Minnesota scandal in 2000, the one that I began with, that back then was considered the biggest scandal of its time. And now we're seeing so much more coming out. It's a nightmare.
What really upset me about the Minnesota scandal was the whistleblower received so many threats that they had to move out of town.
That's right.
And subsequently, the person passed away. Somebody has to have the moral integrity to step up and say, you want to know something? We have a fiduciary responsibility, as the word is student athlete. Student is supposed to be the optimum word. In a lot of cases, it's not. Barry and Big Nate, I ran a few stats, a few back of the envelope stats. Roughly 12,000 student athletes play Division I football. Now it's called FBS, but anybody that's been following college football for the last 50 years calls it Division I. And there's, as I said, 12,000 student athletes that play. Approximately 250 to 260, depending on the year, with compensatory drafts, etc. But for the sake of this argument, let's say 255 players get drafted.
Out of the 12,000.
Out of the 12,000. So roughly 2% will get drafted, with less than 2% actually making the team. So there's a responsibility to over 98% of the Division I football players. Now let's take Division I basketball. There are roughly 5,000 student athletes who compete. And last year, 46 college athletes were selected for the draft, which is less than 1%. Now it goes further. Now, out of the 46, out of the 1% that were selected, only 24 out of the 46, their contracts were guaranteed. So you're talking zero point 0.5 of 1% receive a guaranteed contract. So I thought for purposes of illustration, let's have an interesting debate here. I picked out the most selective colleges, which happened to be Harvard at 6%, Stanford at 6%, Yale, Princeton, and Columbia at 7%, MIT at 8%, and University of Chicago at 9%. So, to illustrate an example, an applicant's chance of getting into Harvard is 300% that of a Division I player getting drafted to the NFL. Granted, not all college players apply for the draft. With basketball, using that same illustration, a chances of an applicant gaining acceptance to Harvard is 667% greater than getting a Division I basketball player receiving an NBA contract. So picture this: you have a 667% better chance of getting into the most selective university in the United States. Our phone lines are lighting up.
Let's take some calls, Greg. Let's start off. Yeah, let's start
Kenny,
off.
who's on the line that we have right now?
We got Matt.
Matt, you're up.
Matt, welcome to the Gift of Life with Greg. Hello, Matt. All right. There he is. Matt, can you hear us?
Matt.
Hi. Sorry, I had some reception issues there.
Matt, you've been hearing about our show. We're talking about grade inflation. It's 3 times as likely to get into Harvard than it is to be an NFL player. What do you think?
No, not 300%. Yeah. 300% that of you have a better chance of getting into Harvard 300% than a Division I college football player getting drafted to an NFL team. What's your thoughts, Matt?
So I'm from Florida. I went to one of those big schools where, one of the big Florida schools where football and basketball definitely, kind of reign supreme over everything else. And to think of it really as those two sports that is different from everything else. I think it's important to separate those two from pretty much every other sport. Because when you talk about Division I athletes, there's so many sports that obviously don't get big-time TV contracts, which really is what runs all the money. So I think it's definitely important to separate those out, because to me it's like apples and oranges, like football, basketball, and then everything else.
Yeah, what we call the revenue and the non-revenue sports.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, Matt, thanks for your call. I really appreciate it.
Matt, did you have an opinion on what the coaches or administrators' responsibility is to the student athletes?
Yeah, it's a double-edged sword for me as a student there, because I definitely had a lot of fun because the sports were so successful. I went to the school I went to. We were, top 10 in both.
No, I from what you just said, I know what school you went to, and I'm not going to disclose it right now. But I know that it's going to probably elicit a lot of money, a lot of joy from the students. It'll definitely put a lot of money into the community, especially on game days. But is it the right thing?
All right. What do you think? What do you think, Nate?
These college coaches, I think, have 2 responsibilities. They have an ethical responsibility to the student/athlete, and they have a financial responsibility to the program, the team, the school, which obviously overpowers the ethical responsibility to the student.
Well, I want to piggyback on something, and we're going to take James in 1 second. The question that I pose out to Barry and Nate: if you look at the contract, are there more incentives to win games or to graduate students?
That's a good clue.
That's a question. So it's almost like a short-term stock that a CEO gets credited if the stock appreciates very, very quickly. But let's take James. He's been waiting patiently.
Next caller, James, you're on the air. James, welcome to Gift of Life with Greg.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
James, how are you? You've been listening to our conversation about grade inflation and athletics in college?
Yeah, I have been, and I actually think it's a very interesting one. I myself am not an athlete. I had lived with an athlete once in one of my years in college, and he was definitely focused. Number one focus was on sports, but he also knew that like school had to come along with it because he was not allowed to participate without the grades.
That's probably he's probably part of a very small percentage of students that understand the importance of education.
There's something that I want to piggyback on what Matt said. What we're talking about today is really relevant to a small minority of all student athletes. Again, most of the majority of student athletes do not play revenue sports. The majority of student athletes do not go professional. And the majority of student athletes, administration and so forth, do it the right way. It's just like with any scandal, it magnifies in the news. And being that we have a significant audience that attends universities and definitely works with Gift of Life, where we represent, we thought it would be an interesting subject.
Let me ask you, though, James. Now, you say that you roomed with an athlete. Was this what division school was this? How serious was this athlete?
Division I, University of Florida, go Gators. But actually, like another thing that I was just remembering is I was actually in a class with a football player or used to be a football player. He got drafted. From what I understand, he got drafted in his second year, while at University of Florida, and then went and played as a linebacker for the Bears or the Broncos or something, and then actually has come back to school to finish his degree because his career ended in the NFL.
And that's something I believe that, and it's a great point.
Excellent point.
It's an excellent point. I believe that the universities, it's their obligation once somebody finishes their professional sports career, if they leave early, that they should honor their educational scholarship. Again, the athletes create so much revenue for the university, and in my opinion, keeping a seat there at the university is a soft cost. So I'm happy that this particular athlete went back, and we really appreciate your call. Go Gators.
Thank you, James.
All right. Anyways, you guys have a good day. I'll let you get back to figuring out the...
Thanks again, James. Thanks for your call.
All right. Next up on the plate, we have Billy.
Billy, welcome to the Gift of Life with Gregg.
How are you doing today?
Hey, Billy. How are you?
Doing good. I'm the opposite of Go Gators. I'm one of the teams that's involved in half the scandals in the news these days. So,
what are your thoughts?
But I'm from down in South Florida, but I went to Florida State, and I mean, there's everything that you guys are saying is true. There's the money, the revenue that's involved. Anytime you have this type of dollars involved, you're going to get the propensity for illegal activities, for shady dealings, and it's an easy thing to do on the college campus, unfortunately. And the larger the school, I think, the easier it is for things to be found out. There's a lot more people delving into the backgrounds of each of the students when you get into the higher end schools. You get into the Auburns, into the Ohio States, the USCs, the Floridas, Florida States, Miami, and it's a shame to see whenever it does happen. And as you said, though, it is the minority of it when it does happen. It's just when it happens to a top tier school and heavily publicized. It seems a lot worse than it generally is.
Billy, this is Gregg. I want to throw a question back out at you, and we'll bifurcate it in this respect. I believe that at the large institutions, I don't know that the academic advisors, the coaches et al., could really police all the money that's going on underhanded. But let me pose this question to you. If 12 out of the 15 basketball players are taking the same class and they have a sub 2.0 GPA, they're all getting A's in this class where, as a percentage of the school, maybe 1% their major, but 80% of a respective team. I think the coach then has to open up his eyes.
I agree with you 100%. And you were asking who is responsible or where does liability lie?
Yes.
The coach is ultimately responsible. And I have a very good friend of mine who actually is the academic advisor, I guess it would be called, for ECU's football team. And that's his job. His job is to make sure everybody's on point. If there's anything that looks shady, it's his job to bring it to light. And I wouldn't call it a whistleblower. It's more like a something looks like it's going awry. We better get it in line before, it does. And he actually was sought after by FSU to come to him, to come work over there, and he stayed over with ECU. But it's you have to have people in place to be able to do that. And you're right. There's no way. And the UNC example was just a gross example of it. I mean, like I say, everybody getting A's, and they threw in a few B's there to kind of skew the curve a little bit.
Exactly.
There's no class. I don't care if it's underwater fire prevention, that somebody isn't going to fail. There's no way that couldn't have been. And it ultimately, as the facts are coming out, it was known about. And obviously they started the program for this, but as it got a little more widespread, people started seeing that, hey, there is something wrong here. You had, what was the total? 3,000 students, I think, that were.
That's correct, around 3,000.
Yeah, over that period of time. And this is where I think that the coach is complicit. I agree with your sentiment that if there's 80,000 people in a school and 100 people on a football team, you can't administer everybody getting money under the table, but the radar has to go off if everybody is taking the same class getting an A.
I disagree that by what Billy was saying about the coach is the only one responsible for this type of behavior. I think that
not the only one.
No, but the buck stops with the coach.
Yeah, I think that the whole program is responsible because I think that every school has different motivation, different goals about what kind of product they're putting out into the public. Like a football motivated school like the Canes, Seminoles, Michigan State, they're more concerned about putting out a football product, while you have schools like Harvard and, academically focused universities are more concerned about putting out an educational product.
Nobel Prize winners.
Right, that will represent them long term and, keep the school in the best light possible, while football motivated schools are only concerned about putting out top quality potential pro NFL football players.
You know where I think I'm gonna chime in.
Go ahead.
Michigan is a great football school, a great academic institution. Ohio State, great academic institution. What I mentioned on the onset of the show, the coaches' contracts. How is it incentive laden? Is it to win, or is it to graduate players, or is there both being integrated into the contract? If it's only to win games, sometimes money makes you do things that you normally wouldn't do.
Sometimes. Billy, what are your thoughts?
Sometimes, yeah, I agree that the ultimate coach's report card is wins, and that's a point of not only it's our problem. It's a problem as a fan. We get mad when our team isn't winning all the games, and we start pointing fingers.
I mean,
now,
look at 30 or 40 years down the road, when you see all these professional athletes filing bankruptcy, ending up homeless. This all started from the college level not getting the education that they're entitled to, and their only reason for being in school is to only focus on sports. How are these schools preparing these individuals for after their career is done?
I think there should be classes. I mean, I'm not a fan of the current system of the draft. I think they're allowing people to go out way too early, and I would prefer. I look at people. You mentioned one guy was mentioning the guy who came back after his career was over.
Yep.
We got people like Chris Winkie who came back. After he'd gone on with a baseball career, started a company, got done with the company, came back, played football, and went out.
Great point. Great point.
I mean, I think that if a school is going to put together these fluff courses, they should put together courses that will help prepare these athletes for after their season, after their career is done.
Billy, that was Billy. Thank you for being a friend of the show.
Great call.
Really, really great call. It was insightful. So please, if there's a topic that inspires you, please give us a call back. And last but not least, we're having a walk in Boca Raton in January, and I believe you're in the South Florida area.
Oh, I guess we lost him there. Well,
now, all right, we got John. The phones just keep lighting up. John, welcome to Gift of Life with Gregg. How are you, buddy?
Good. How are you doing? Also, to touch on the last caller too, it's not even stemming in college. It's high school. High school starts everything, and these guys give free passes to athletes all the time, even in high school. That they take these easy grades. Teachers just give them, a grade just so they look good and they can play the sport.
Absolutely. Go ahead.
I mean, it starts young.
I'll be honest with you. I'm 45 years old. I'm naive to what's going on at the high school level now. So, John, if you could fill me in.
My kids are way past that too. I'm 51, and it's the same thing when they play sport. I know that my kids, they tell me, like my one daughter got a scholarship also to relate to the other things. But these coaches, they put them in these grades. They talk, coaches, high school coaches are still teachers too. And, they kind of curve the grade up a little bit to keep them playing. Athletes, even high school athletes, you look at St. Thomas down here, they're a powerhouse. You look at all the different high schools that are powerhouses. You're not going to tell me that every kid is a straight A student. And then can afford scholarships to colleges and stuff. And even also, like, I had the coaches come to our house, sit down, and say, you know what, I'm here to take care of your kid to go to college. So they are responsible for your kid when they're giving you a full ride to these colleges.
Very true.
They come in and recruit you. They're saying, listen, I'm going to take care of your kid. The education is number one. Then it's the program, and then it's life after college. So, I mean, they're coming to, especially the Division I school coaches are coming in and selling this to their, as parents, saying, listen, I'm going to take care of them. I'm going to make sure they're safe. They're getting a well-educated, a good education and everything else. So that's what they're telling these kids now. And they always have told them that. But, the number one priority is win.
John, let me ask you a question. Do you have any children that played collegiate sports or that play collegiate sports?
I had one that got a full ride for tennis in Division I school down in Florida. So she did very well. It's still also up to the parent to make sure your child is still getting a good education in college.
Absolutely.
And I understand that, some of these kids are from broken homes or never had that structure. And when they're starting to get, these kids get everything when they get a full ride. They're getting a free meal plan. They're eating better than they probably ever did. They're getting all the attention. And it's the boosters that are pushing the money for the coaches to win. That's what's really saving the coaches' jobs is wins and losses. I think it's all the boosters, all the money that's thrown around.
Yeah, and in fact, if I could chime in, I heard on the news today, which isn't an uncommon event, Nick Saban, the renowned coach of Alabama, the boosters paid for his 8,000 square foot home in Alabama.
Oh,
a little over $3 million, and that's not unheard of. So, John, what I mentioned before on the show, when money is the motivating factor, are you acting the most ethically?
I don't think in any business when the money is the most is the motivating factor. There's always someone that's going to try to take a shortcut. It's just the way it is. When they're looking at millions of dollars or billions of dollars going through, especially with the TV giving you all this money, and then you got commercial, all these advertisers throwing money at you. Sooner or later, they're not going to miss this. They're going to do this. You have to do this, and sooner or later, there's always somebody that is going to take a shortcut.
Couldn't agree with you more, John. I really want to thank you for your call, and really thank you for your listenership, and invite you to call again.
Yes, have a great day, guys.
You too, man. Take it easy.
Keep it up.
Great calls today.
Great calls. Really, really phenomenal calls. And here's the interesting point. Money is a motivating factor where we work.
Absolutely.
Money is a motivating factor for the cities where if they have 6 collegiate football games a year, the money that's infiltrated into that respective city is phenomenal. But there's something that's called ethics, and there's something that's calling it doing it the right way. The examples that we portrayed were very minimal, but just like everything else, something that reaches the surface will get national notoriety. Something that I want to give notoriety to and was introduced on the last show and preceding shows. Gift of Life has the opportunity right now and has been awarded a matching gift. So I'm going to ask our listenership, any amount that you contribute between today and Halloween, which is Friday the 31st, will be matched at 50%. And I promise you that all the monies that come in will go towards testing kits and help us save more lives. Gift of Life is on the precipice right now of saving 3,000 lives. Not only 3,000 lives, but the loved ones of those patients that are ill. So it's something that I'm imploring right now to our listening audience. If you like our show and you like our cause and you want to tour our office, we're happy to host you. If you could spare some discretionary income and contribute it to Gift of Life, you could certainly reach us at 1-800-9-MARROW or www.giftoflife.org. Joel and Anita are waiting for you at 1-800-962-7769.
And before we take our last call today, Gregg, I want to echo something, a sentiment that you said. You know, earlier in the show, you were talking about investments. You know, is it a good investment? You know, making that comparison with stocks. Let's make a comparison with stocks right now. Dividends. Can you imagine an investment that pays out more dividends than saving someone's life? It is the ultimate investment, saving somebody's life. It pays out in perpetuity forever. You're changing not only one person's life, you're changing the world. And that's from the good book.
That's from the good book. And also, I know that we have limited time. I'm hoping that our show changed Big Nate's life. I'm happy that he did something that he normally would not have done. So if we'd incentivized one person to live their gift of life, then I believe that we did our job. But as you said, I think we have somebody on the line.
Yeah, let's take that last call. Johnny, you're on the air. Johnny, welcome to the Gift of Life with Gregg.
Hey, this is Johnny from Carolina.
Johnny from Carolina, how's it going, man?
Oh, gosh.
You've been listening to our conversation about your Chapel Hill?
I have been, and I am a graduate of Chapel Hill, so I have a lot of thoughts on it.
Okay.
Somebody's in trouble now.
I don't know who's in trouble, but Johnny, go ahead.
Well, the first thing that I always just think about is how much, you know, I'm just going to say the basketball team, because football no one really cares about that much. Basketball is really what the reason I went. You know, I stayed in state. You know, I could have gone other places for college, but it's, you know, I grew up rooting for the team. I grew up hating Duke, hating, you know, Wake Forest, NC State. That was part of my life. So
good old Tobacco Row.
It definitely, for me, that's the highlight of my college career. But as a student, it is really tough because I took academics very seriously. It's as seriously as I took basketball, you know, as a fan growing up. So for me, it's really tough. And I think I speak for a lot of fans when I say that we all probably thought this stuff was happening, but we kind of, you know, just didn't want it to believe. You know, we didn't want to believe it. You hear it happening everywhere else. You think that your school is different. And I think that most people, when they go to school, they think that it's probably happening everywhere. It might happen at mine, but until we get caught, I'm fine with it. And that was how I felt. It's very tough for me because this is a team I grew up loving and memorizing the players and, you know, wanting to get their autographs. And now you hear all this other, you know, things that you probably thought in the back of the mind was happening. And it's tough to root for them the same way. And I think a lot of the people feel the same. You know, it's tough to be as crazy at games when you know that, you know, you've almost been kind of living a lie for the past, you know, however many years you've been rooting for them.
Nate, you want to add something to that?
Yeah, I kind of agree with what this gentleman is saying. I think that when you're building a high-caliber team with top-quality athletes and you're winning and you're putting up huge numbers, and I think that it's very easy to forget how you got to that situation. Especially when you're motivated by building these unbelievable lineups. I think it's very easy for the school. It kind of builds on school spirit. Everybody wants a winning team because winning team influences high energy students.
No, you want to know something? It's entertaining. It's something that 50,000 people could rally around. And at football games, you're looking at 85,000. I mean, it's the Johnny. You there?
Yeah, I'm here.
I know that I know that basketball is king where you're at, and I have the utmost respect because it's a great academic institution, Chapel Hill.
It is.
It's a great academic institution, and I thought it was an interesting topic. So I want to thank you for calling in. And how'd you learn about the Gift of Life with Gregg?
I saw it on Facebook. Somebody that I know. We had a bunch of people in the South, and one of my friends moved down to Miami. Lucky guy, and so I saw it on his Facebook.
Hey, thanks so much for your call, Johnny.
Thank you.
All right, let's wrap it up. I got a couple emails that we got from last week, so I'm going to read one because we only have time. Constance from Silver Spring, Maryland. The unknown was what made me join the sorority. I wanted to see how far they would push the limit, and that excited me. They pushed it too far. So we thought that was a good email. And Constance from Silver Springs, thanks for your email. I wanted to let you know, and everyone else out in the D.C., Maryland area, that we're going to have our first annual Walk for Life in the D.C. area, actually, in Rock Creek Park in Rockville, Maryland, Greg. November 9th. It's going to start at a nice, bright, early 7 a.m. in the morning.
7 a.m. is registration. We're walking at 8. Everybody will be home in time to either go to church or watch football. So we'll be out there bright and early. And if you're there, if you're listening right now, come say hi to Gregg. I'll be out there next week. For everybody that listened today, I know that we're very, very short on time. I want to thank Big Nate for being our special guest.
Thank you so much, Nate, for coming out.
Hey, it's my pleasure.
And everybody, follow in Big Nate's steps. Really enjoy your gift of life. We'll see you next Tuesday, and God bless. Have a great week.
Thanks for tuning in to The Gift of Life with Gregg. I wanted to personally say thank you to everyone who participated in today's show. And I also wanted to let you know if that you're interested in what we do here at The Gift of Life, please call 1-800-9-MARROW. That's 1-800-9-MARROW. Or you can visit our website at www.giftoflife.org. Again, that's www.giftoflife.org. Even though we're wrapping up our show today, remember, you must always unwrap the gift of life.
The opinions expressed on the preceding sponsored